Matamita. What's going on, everybody? We are the Bar Down Beauties podcast. I'm Jesse Pierce. She's Alexis Pearson. He's producer Fred and Kevin Gorg joining us. The KG in the house, kicking off day 2 of the Let's Play Hockey Expo. Bar Down Beauties podcast releases new podcast episodes every single week. Mikko Koivu, our guest this week, but Kevin Gorg, Mikko Koivu, big day for number 9 tomorrow as his number gets retired. First to be retired in the rafters at XL Energy Center.
Yeah, it should be a great day. Looking forward to the event. I was lucky enough to cover him throughout most of his career. Special guy. You guys both know that. And I think a rightful selection to be the first Minnesota Wild player to have his number up in the rafters. You know, we travel around throughout the season to places like Boston and Montreal and Toronto, and you look up, and every rink you go to, you look, and you're just in awe of some of these names. And I think you look forward to the next 10, 20, 30 years when Wild fans are going to walk in that building. A lot of them kids that we're watching here at the Expo today, and that is going to be one of the iconic names and faces of the organization. And this is a big moment in time for the organization and for fans tomorrow to have that first one go up. So I can't wait for tomorrow.
The media has talked a lot about this past week, and I noticed this when Jesse and I had him on our podcast and seen the way that he's talked with the media, other media the rest of the week. A lot of people have said that he's really opened up this week, and we've seen a side of him that not everybody got to see when he was a Minnesota Wild player. Not that he never had that side, but we didn't see it as much. And it seems like he's really opened up and shown the pride that he has for this big day tomorrow. Would you say the same?
I would. I think he was, for a lot of his career, Alexis, he was really guarded. And, you know, the intensity that he brought to the rink, it was hard for him to always shut that down. And I think later in his career that changed. And I remember an interview we did when he was still playing on the ice, and I had asked him a fairly generic question about winning another home game. They were on a streak of home wins, and he talked about the connection that he had with the fans. And it was the first time I'd ever heard that. And I think when you retire and you stay in that particular town, you'd certainly do some reflection. And I think he has really learned to appreciate this community and these fans. And I think for him, I had a chance to chat with him on another podcast last week, and just I could not believe.
You can go ahead and promo your podcast, Gorgie.
Dan Myers and I are the Civ and the Scribe. We're no Bar Down Beauties.
Which one's the Civ and which one's the Scribe?
He's the Scribe, so you can fill in the rest, Alexis. But it was fun to see that side of Mikko, right? Because for so many years, we didn't get to see that side. For the average fan out there, they weren't privy to that. Now, behind the scenes, he was damn funny. Like, he was a prankster, and he and Tony DaCosta had such a cool relationship. Tony's the equipment manager for the Minnesota Wild, longtime equipment manager, and that was a very, like, feisty brother relationship that they had, and the pranks behind the scenes, and Mikko's sense of humor. A lot of times the fans had no idea what that personality was. You're seeing some of that come out right now, and I think the fans will get a good look at that tomorrow during that ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, it is. He's got that dry sense of humor. So sometimes it's hard to read, right? You look at Mikko and he says something, you're like, are you joking? I can't tell. You're not smiling. Or what are we?
Stone face. Yeah.
You're like, what are we doing here? But love him. I loved. He had a good quip on our podcast about Mike Rupp. Mike Rupp, a very
big
character, very vocal, and he was like, so many times I would be like, just shut up. Just shut up, Mike. From 7 a.m. to 7:30, he was going. And so.
Well, and Ruppers landed where he's supposed to be, like us.
Yes,
he's broadcasting. Yeah. I think Stalock was the same way with Mikko.
Yeah.
Stalock never shut up either.
Never.
And they would get after each other behind the scenes. And I think for the average fan out there that sat at the XL Center or watched our broadcast, you never saw that side of Mikko.
Yeah.
He was always so intense. It made him the great player he was, but honestly, behind the scenes, he was a real character.
Well, and as a captain of the organization, he had to face the music more often than his teammates, right? So it's like he had to take that approach. Probably got annoyed when we have to pester him with, all right, why'd you lose this? Or what happened here? And yada, yada. I mean, it's not easy being that guy, but no, again, like you mentioned, very deserving person to go up. I'm so excited to see the ceremony. Reminder to anybody coming to the game tomorrow to be in your seats by 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
For that ceremony. I think game time's got a little funky. It's spring ahead, so you don't want to miss it. It's going to be really
spring ahead.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's spring
Oh,
ahead.
I
It's
forgot
a whole
about that.
Lose an hour of
It's
sleep.
chaos tomorrow, Kevin Gorg.
Well, the gates open at 3:45. I know
Yep.
that. So
Yep.
people are going to want to get over there early. It's going to be packed by the time we get to 5 o'clock. You're going to want to see the video presentation and all the luminaries. I believe there's 25 to 30 significant Wild alumni that are
Oh,
coming
that
back.
many? Wow.
And that's a challenge, too, because so many of his teammates right now are involved in the league, either playing, broadcasting, coaching. Andrew Brunette is top of that list, right? I mean, the Florida Panthers are rolling right now with the Brew Cat, a good friend of Miko's. So that might take away from some of that, but still 25 to 30 guys are going to be here. And I think it's just going to be one of those days for a Wild fan. If you're a longtime Wild fan, which I am at age 55, been here since day one, either as a season ticket holder or as a guy covering the game since 06, this is one of those moments that you do not want to miss, because there's always that one time where you get to see a jersey go up in the rafters for the very first time. And I'm sure before we're done, you mentioned, wearing the seat. A guy like Jared Spurgeon might be in consideration down the road, Jonas Brodin, but there'll only be one first time, and that's tomorrow.
Absolutely. No, again, Bar Down Beauties here with Kevin Gorg talking a little Wild hockey trivia today. You can get a sticker. I asked this yesterday. What number did Mikko Koivu wear before number 9?
Don't give it away, KG.
Yeah, don't give it away.
Well, all I'll say is this. It's the number I wore in high school. It's my
Oh,
very
nice.
favorite number.
You
And
can get
it's-
2
fact.
stickers if you know the
if
answer.
you
to this.
know the number and you're ever out and about at the XL Center or a restaurant or bar in town and you walk up and you want to win a bet, I carry that number of cents in my left pocket. All my
okay.
life.
Oh,
Now,
Some
it's been
KG
37
trivia
that
here.
is
So
awesome.
I was disappointed, and I told Mikko this last week. I was disappointed he didn't hang on to that number. But there's a great story, and we'll get to that later. But that is a good trivia question, and I think
right.
for the older fans, they'll get it. For the younger fans, they're like, "No, man, he was
He's
always
number
number 9."
nine. Yeah.
No, he
Somebody
was not.
knew it yesterday, so we'll see if they know today.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
speaking of his retirement tomorrow, it's not only a big day for Mikko and the Minnesota Wild hockey community and its fans, but it's a big game for the Minnesota Wild as we sit here
It
at this
is.
point in the season. And they've played some East Coast teams recently here. This is a Central Division team who the Wild are battling with, for points for, and a team they haven't really played well against recently, to be honest. What is your take on the Wild's current status? Are you panicking? Are you comfortable? You think they'll be okay? And how do you assess this upcoming game tomorrow?
I never got to the point of panic. I got to the point of worried until that home win against the Rangers. And I thought for the first time in about a month, they looked like the team we've seen throughout most of the season. And I'll say this. I talked to Ryan Carter about this. I talked to Mark Parrish about this. I never played in the NHL, so I don't have that advantage that those guys have. And they said in an 82-game schedule, the hardest stretch for any team, especially a team that's had success, is games 40 through 60. And there can be a lull there at that point. And I think they went through some of that and kind of lost their identity, kind of who they are and how they have to play the game. The Ranger game, I saw that again. The Detroit game, I'll say this. It was a sloppy game. It was a weird game. But when push came to shove in the third period, they looked like that team, and I thought they played terrific last night. A lot of people with the state tournament going on probably didn't get the chance to see the game last night. First period, they took 4 penalties in the first period, which is not a recipe for success. Survived
Especially
that.
for a team who can't kill a penalty to save their life.
Correct. And Columbus got a power play goal, to your point. But after the first period, I'm not kidding you. The analytics probably bear this out. The Wild had the puck on their stick between 80 and 90% of the time. They looked dominant. They just couldn't get that next goal. They kind of let Columbus hang around long enough where I thought Dean Evison hit the nail on the head last night. He's like, we've been doing this all year long, pulling the goalie, tying the game, and stealing the point. Last night it happened to the Wild for the first time in a long time. That's going to happen, but they looked like that team again. And this game tomorrow is huge because Nashville and St. Louis, to me, are dangerous teams for the Wild because of the way they play. They're big, they're heavy, and they have skill. And so to me, it's more of a test. And I know that you mentioned, I think it was a while back when we played Nashville, way back first month of the year.
One of their first losses, I
It was in
think.
St. Paul.
yeah.
We didn't look good.
Yeah.
And so the advantage you get tomorrow is it's going to be juiced at the X Center. The crowd's going to be there early. They're going to be amped. And Nashville plays St. Louis today. So that should be a physical game, and having them travel and come back and play a second of back-to-back plays into the Wild's hands. But they need to figure out the recipe for success against big physical teams. And the Wild have size, specifically the Eck line. But on the blue line, if you look at their key components on the blue line, Spurgeon, Brodin, Goligoski, 3 of their top 4 defensemen are on the smaller side. And I think Vegas last year in the playoffs went after those guys physically. Knocked Brodin out of the game in Game 7.
And
I
that's
thought
the
that was the
playoffs
difference.
every year, right? I mean,
So
it is that.
These are the type
element.
of games where you've got to figure out. And if I'm Bill Guerin, and again, he knows 1,000 times more about this than all of us combined, but you have to look at these games and say to yourself, okay, I've got a team that I think is capable of making a run. I've got star players. I've got depth. But do I need one more big, rugged D-man who's mobile that can help? Because to me, I get the question all the time, hey, what would you do? And I'm like, well, they're not asking me, but that's the one area I look at. I'm like, well, I love our
Would you
top
settle
4.
for a rental then, or would you want somebody long-term? Because for me, I think if you're going to fix in defense, I think it has some holes, right? It has some cracks that are showing. Absolutely. I think John Merrill, Dmitry Kulikov exceeded expectations for what they were supposed to do.
Good.
And they've been good. And now they've kind of faltered, which this is what I expected of them, right? So, I mean, looking at it, I don't know that I'd want necessarily a rental D, though. I'd want somebody that could stick around for another year or two, because you're absolutely right. That top 4 needs to be solidified. And I think Goligoski's kind of struggling right now. So I don't know what the future might hold for him, right? Unfortunately. But yeah, size alone. I mean, Dumbo's the only one with really any juice.
He's got some grit, right?
I kind of would prefer somebody that would maybe stick around for another year or two until Kalen Addison's ready, or until you've got somebody else down in the system. What are your thoughts there? You want to go rental? You want to go long term?
I prefer long term, but I mean, the beauty of where the Wild are at right now, for the first time in a very, very long time, they have got draft picks. They've got young prospects. They've got tons of depth. You know, you look at players that made a splash in training camp that can't even get a spot for a game or two. I'm thinking of Beckman, right? That kid was awesome in the preseason games with the Wild. But this team has got the kind of depth where you can maybe throw a draft pick and a prospect out at a player like you're thinking of, Jess, that isn't a rental just for this year. It could be a defenseman that could help these guys for the next 5 years. They've got the capital. I think it's going to be super important for Bill Guerin to measure how much he wants to give up, because if you look at this realistically, this team right now is a very good team, but they are supposed to be better in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years.
Right.
Think of the young goalie they've got, Wallstead. I think of some of the young players that are still developing, watching these games, the college games out at Boston College, some of those guys. They've got these guys all lined up to get here. And so, you know, you think of Marco Rossi next year likely makes a splash with the Minnesota Wild. So as good as they are right now, you have to be patient if you're the GM, because you know the better years are still to come.
You knocked on the door. I'm going to kick it wide open. Goaltending Kevin Gorg. It has been a hot debate between Alexis and I all season.
I'm aware.
Yeah, right?
Don't pick on my goalies.
I got to pick on the goalie.
KG's a goalie,
don't
Jesse.
pick on my goalies.
He's a Civ. I'm just kidding.
Hey, now.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed
The
Civ. The Civ.
The one and only.
Exactly. So, I mean, realistically, what do you think of the goaltending tandem as is between Cam and Capo? Because obviously it's not the best that it could be. We've seen better, and that's okay, but it's also just seems to me fine, which fine isn't good enough. Fine's not getting you through the playoffs, unfortunately. Right?
And I want this from a former goalie's perspective, not broadcaster KG. I want goalie KG to break this down for us.
Well, they're good enough. I'll tell you right now. Are they elite? Not right now. I agree with you. The numbers, I mean, that's the beauty of where we're at in this league. The numbers speak for what you guys are saying. We get it. You've got a veteran and a young guy, so I like that combo platter. But if you look at this realistically, they're going to have to elevate their play. They showed stretches, both these guys, where they were on top of their game, and this team didn't lose. If the Wild get elite goaltending, they can beat anybody at any time. And so I'm talking Vegas, I'm talking Colorado, I'm talking St. Louis, whoever you'd meet in the playoffs. If you get elite goaltending, this team absolutely is capable of winning. You guys mentioned the penalty kill, and I'm not putting this all on Capo and Cam.
Right.
But I will tell you, the most important position in any penalty kill situation at any level of hockey is that position. And they have struggled lately, and the numbers don't lie.
Right.
So do I think there's an answer out there? I don't. I don't. And I am the biggest fan of Marc-Andre Fleury.
So is Jesse.
I love
Yeah,
him. He
be the
is
flower.
not the answer.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
You
If
stop
you've watched
that.
the way he's played this year,
Yeah.
he's not the same
He
guy.
is on a trash
he's on
team.
Chicago.
You know what,
What do
though?
you want from him?
The game the Wild played when we got to watch him up close and personal,
Yes.
the Wild were outshot and won the game 5 or 6-0. He wasn't
Yeah.
good. He got the hook. He's at the end of the end. I know he's won 3 cups. I know he's a fun
rental.
person.
He's a good. Just toss him in there. He's a playoff guy.
But if he's not dramatically better than what you have, then I don't want the Wild to risk that capital. I don't think the juice
Yeah,
is worth the
that's a fair
squeeze.
point.
All
You've
right.
got to rely on these 2 guys figuring it out because they have worked so hard to put this team in the position that they're in. Both these guys have shown that they're capable of taking over for stretches of time. You've got 2. You don't have 1. Big difference. If you only had 1 and then the guy behind him had no experience and just wasn't ready, then you have to get a guy. If you've got 2 guys, you have to bank on the fact that, like the team, they're going to come out of this and get back to the form we saw throughout most of the season.
Yeah.
Both these guys have been really, really good. Kakkonen for a stretch was so good that Talbot couldn't get back in the net. I mean, they're both capable of taking over games, and you've got 2 guys. So if I'm Bill Guerin, I don't touch that position. I
So
don't.
you, even if you think that, so you don't think Fleury would be a big enough upgrade to
I
take
don't.
that chance? If there was someone out there who you thought was a big enough upgrade, would you go for that, or do you
With Braden,
still?
it's not going to happen anymore, right? Because
No,
now Dallas
Holtby-
is in contention. They're
Holtby's
they're
coming.
knocking up the door.
Pavelski's not coming.
Yeah.
Dallas isn't doing a thing.
Would Holtby have been an option? Say Dallas had kind of,
Holtby was the one guy that caught, and I think Brandon Molesky was the first one to kind of come up with that idea, and he did it a month or 2 ago. And I was like, you know what? I hadn't thought about that, but he made the most sense.
Yeah.
But it's not happening. And
Yeah.
so the one guy that is Fleury. He's going to cost a lot more than he should
Yeah.
because of the name and because of the 3 cups that he brings with him.
Yeah.
And I don't see it. I think you've got 2 different goalies that can be there at crunch time. They both have now, Kakkonen no longer is the little rookie that we don't know about. We know he's capable.
Yeah.
We know he's good enough to push Cam, and I still love Cam. I still trust him. I love his work ethic. I love the way
You can come
he's
grab a
meshed.
sticker.
Yeah, come get a sticker. Look at that
Go
cutie.
Huskies. There you go.
Ready for the big game. She's ready to go. She's ready to go. So, yeah, I think you're okay there. But it's fun. I just think it's fun that this team has us thinking more than just getting in the playoffs.
Right.
For a few years now, it's been, can they get in? Can they get in? We know this team's likely going to be there.
We're talking about these problems because we want a Stanley Cup.
We want to run,
Yeah.
right? We wanna see
I
this
don't
team
want
make
to
a
be
run.
fine. I want to be good
Exceptional,
and great. And,
yeah.
and you're right. You look at the future and you look at Wallstead, and he is going
Ooh,
going to
I'm
be
so
the guy.
excited about
He's
him.
going to be. And I mean, we've never said that before, KG, right? Like, we have a future. This team has like a future. The prospects. It's just never been a thing for the Minnesota Wild. You've got a superstar for the first time. You've got future for the first time. So it is. And I think, going into this season, even the Wild did exceed expectations, have exceeded. Kevin Gorg in the house. Come on, have a seat, guys.
There they are.
There you
It's
go.
you,
Prior
baby.
Lake in the house. Hey, what? Got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Miko
Oh, he's
Koivu.
shy. He's
What
shy
number
now.
did Miko Koivu wear before number 9? Nice. Come
He
grab a
knows.
sticker.
You want a sticker?
21, everybody.
You got it right.
There.
Miko
21.
Koivu. Oh,
He's
and
got
he's
the
got a
Kaprizov
Kaprizov.
jersey.
Oh,
He knew the
yeah.
answer back there.
Nice. 21. There we go.
There we go.
Miko Koivu
Guy
would
knows
wear
his
number
stuff right there.
21 because when he went to Houston, number 9 was retired.
Lakers are everywhere.
Lakers are
They're
everywhere.
They're
They
swarming.
represent.
Yeah. Alex Bump in the house probably somewhere,
He's
right?
around here.
There we
He's
go.
around
He's
here.
around there crushing things. No, yeah, I mean, I forgot. Oh, they're exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
Because I think you look at the next 2 or 3 years and you're like, yes, that team, those teams are prime. And this year, like, oh, okay, maybe they're going to try to make that run. But I think the goaltending concerns me. Like, I feel like they're more than just one piece away at this point. And with the deadline approaching, and everybody knows, obviously, the cap situation, it's just, I don't know. I almost, if I'm Billy G, might stay pat because there's really no need to break up what is happening right now in that locker room because it's not just one piece that's going to kind of fix things and make you a true contending team. And that's okay. You're still going to make the playoffs and maybe you surprise everybody. But I think, looking at teams like Calgary and Florida and watching Minnesota play, I mean, the East, Holy cow! I don't know who comes out of that because it's just so strong. But
Yeah, do you have finals picks, KG?
Yeah,
East and West?
You going
who
Bruno?
you thinking?
My Bruno with the Panthers, huh?
I'll be cheering for Bruno with both hands. I mean,
God, I love you, Bruno.
I love that Brew Cat.
Absolutely. Grab a sticker. Hey, guys, again, we're the
She's
Bar
got
Down
the right
Beauties
sweater on. Look at that.
She's got the Koivu
Was she rocking
sweater.
Koivu? There we
Nice.
go. Yeah.
We got stickers. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got Kevin Gorg in the house this morning. Matt Dumba's going to swing through a little bit later. Absolutely. Take a couple.
Yeah. Put them everywhere.
Yeah.
Good luck, Huskies.
Yeah.
Give me some nucks.
There we go.
Yeah, feel free.
KJ's got a new
Sweetie.
fan.
Come say hi.
kid.
You know, if you have questions, we'd love to take your questions too. But yeah, who are your picks, KG?
Well, it's too early to make picks because you have to still get to the who's in, who's matching
Trade
up with
deadline
who.
could change a lot too.
Trade deadline, great point, Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to have a big impact. But I mean, the right teams. I mean, if you look, Tampa's still Tampa. I love the Florida Tampa thing. I love that those two teams at some point are going to duel. They both play that high octane game. They've made a full lap. There go your.
Got my
There go
family
your
in the
cherubs and your
house. They don't
lovely
care
husband.
about me.
They're just like, yeah, we've seen her before.
Yeah,
Who cares?
right.
But no, I think you got the right teams in the East. I still love that my Penguins are relevant. Crosby's still doing his thing. They've struggled a little bit here in the last couple of weeks, but they are a team that will be a certain fixture. What's interesting to me is the West. I think the West is a lot more wide open. The East,
It always seems to be that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be upsets in the West. I really do. And I look at, Colorado is awesome. I don't trust their goaltending. I'll be the first to admit it.
Not a Darcy Kemper fan.
I
KG.
think Darcy's a solid
Backup.
depth guy.
Yeah.
Like I don't look at him as the man. No offense. Like we watched him here long enough, and if he was 1 and 1A like we have with Talbot and Kakinen, I'd be totally cool. I don't trust their goaltending. And
Fair.
another team that look at a team that gets that far ahead with this many games to go, you start to wonder about, will their play taper off? We've seen signs of it already. I look at Vegas. They're going through a rough stretch right now. These are two teams that everybody pointed to and said, well, they're the teams you have to beat. I think the West is far, far more wide open than the East, because I look at St. Louis, I look at Nashville, I look at our Wild team. These are all teams that are capable of not only winning a series, but making a legitimate run. As good as Colorado and Vegas and some of these teams are, I think that the West has much more of a volatile potential for upset. In the East, it's going to go through Tampa Bay. It's going to go through Florida, Carolina. Those teams are kind of just elite. Maybe a Pittsburgh could pull off an upset or two, but I still think when the dust settles, one of those warmer cities, Carolina, Tampa, or Florida, one of those three is going to be there. I can't limit it to three in the West.
Yeah, it's a toss up.
That's fair. Again, we are the Bar Down Beauties podcast. Kevin Gorg in the house with us this morning. We're talking hockey. We've got other guests swinging through.
Yeah, let's talk about the other guest. Who's coming in today?
We have Michael Russo. He's swinging through this afternoon.
Wow.
I'm sure you guys can come pester him with some of those questions. Matt Dumba is stopping by at 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Ryan Carter will be swinging through
The
at
bird.
2:30. Chris Stewart's supposed to do his Stewie sprint on over here at some point in time.
Really?
Gorgie, we're bringing in the. I mean, we're starting with you. Starting with you.
Set the bar pretty high,
the bar
right?
high, yeah.
set the bar high.
Exactly. Yes.
You got quite a crew today.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
That's just what we do. Tell us a little bit about Civ and Scribe, though. You guys have some
Seventh
good
Scribe,
stuff.
yeah, we're just getting going, really, to be honest. MinnesotaHockey.com is our title sponsor.
And Helvey produces that for you, correct?
Halvy's our guy. We
Yep.
love our Halvy.
You got some good graphics coming that are going to be produced by New Voice Studios, so
I heard
that's
about
exciting.
that,
Yep.
and I'm very excited. It's been fun, right? I mean, Dan and I are lucky enough that we're with the team all the time, whether we're here.
Rink report.
Yeah, I mean, the Rink Report, we all love Dan on the Rink Report. We're happy for him with that. But, so you're around the coaches and players, especially if this team gets into a good spot here in the final month or two and, gets a little roll going in the playoffs. We're going to be with the guys. We can do that podcast wherever we are. And it's been so much fun. We had Lee Smith on last week, longtime Eden Prairie coach, great friend of mine. We coached against each other in the early 90s when I was at Burnsville. And so he got emotional. He's leaving Eden Prairie, and I don't think it was an easy decision, and I think it's been hard. And he got all choked up on the podcast. That's why we do this stuff, right? I mean, we love the game. We love the people that make the game go. And when I think of Lee Smith and I think of high school coaches in general, these are men and women that do it for two reasons. They love kids and they love the game. They're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the glory, because outside of a state tournament run, you're doing it at all hours of the day. Right. You're there for your kids, and you're not you're not getting rich from coaching. I did it. I lived it. And so I have so much respect for people like Lee that have done this for 4 decades plus. And he's just such a quality human being. That's why I love the podcast, because you connect with some of those people. We connected with Andrew Brunette when he was in town. We got to sit down with Miko like you guys and have, a private conversation with just a legend. I mean, Miko Koivu was a legend.
Right.
So I don't take it for granted. I love doing it. I love the podcast game. And I think like you guys, we don't take it for granted. We have enthusiasm for what we do.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned the people. We'd be remiss to not thank some of our people. Let's Play Hockey, obviously, for having us on out here. Soda Stick, they're positioned right next to us. Come join the Marcus Foligno fan club. Get that tea there. There's some Bar Down Buttes hats, a lot of good stuff. Better Edge, BETTREdge.com. We love those guys. Beat the Butte, which has been happening frequently. I don't want to talk about it, but that's on Tuesday.
It's not looking good
It's
for
not
us,
looking
KG.
good, KG.
Oh, I'm sorry to
Not.
hear that,
Okay.
ladies.
It's
Not great.
much like the Wild comeback season is coming, though.
Yes, eventually it will. So no, shout out to all them in Talk North. You can find us on there as well. They are helping sponsor put this all up. Big tourney stuff going on still though today. Class A championship, Warroad and Hermantown. Who you got, KG?
Yeah, this is the matchup everybody wanted. Well,
I mean, not me, but that's
I
fine.
get
don't
it. You're a
care.
Matamidi girl. But when you handicapped the state tournament, it felt like it would come down to these two teams. I think both these teams, you could argue, would have made a run in the AA side and maybe
Sure.
been in the championship game on that
You mean
side.
Hermantown should move up to AA is what we're saying.
That's
but
their
not
choice.
saying.
I'm not going to get involved with the politics around it, but they certainly were instrumental in pushing St. Thomas Academy in that
Oh, yeah.
direction. So I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that whole thing. My head says Hermantown. My heart says Warroad. I have a great connection to the Warroad head coach. His sister played for me at St. Thomas, Mo Hardwick. Jay's a great guy. They run a great program. And here's the deal. They're both outstanding teams. There's something special when a team like Warroad comes down here, right? The whole town shuts down.
Yeah.
Hockey
what it's all about.
matters more.
Yeah.
Like it matters a lot here.
There's
But-
a Warroad jersey. We got some Warriors in the
Yeah.
house.
And by the
There we
way,
go.
look at that sweater.
So good.
The black, the gold, the
Yeah.
crest. I mean, that's as
good.
good as it gets. That's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Henry Boucher, right? I mean,
Yes.
so my heart's with Warroad. I'll be cheering for them. I think Hermantown is an unbelievably good hockey team, and I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
Good for Class A hockey to have the type of play we've seen here the last couple of years in this tournament. There's so many talented players. You look at Matamidi and what they did with their goalie. He is amazing.
Oh,
Dardis-
he's going to win the senior goalie of the year, right?
Well,
He's got to. He's so good.
and he's done it for 4 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I started for 1 year back in my. I can't imagine. No, really, started
Yeah.
for 4 years
Mm-hmm.
in boys high school hockey in Minnesota.
That's
And
a big
Miami
deal.
has
That
made
position
runs with those
Doesn't
too.
happen.
Yeah,
no,
like,
he won a tournament.
yep, exactly.
Beat Hermantown.
Beat
So,
Hermantown. Don't forget.
The kid's unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting. Days like this are special. The tournament every year, it never disappoints. The picture that went around of Alex Bump from Prior Lake with John Mayasich.
Yes,
I mean,
legend.
if you didn't get goosebumps looking at that
Yeah.
picture, I mean, that's to me, every year the tournament happens and every year we get these cool stories that come out from the state tournament. It is the best weekend of the year if you're a hockey fan in Minnesota.
Class AA, you got Andover Huskies. Hill Murray ousted last night, which I
was
think
surprised by
surprised
that.
a
I
lot
would
of
have picked
people,
Hill Murray in
right?
that game for sure.
For
And
sure. And then Maple Grove, the Crimson. What do you? Those are.
We had a lot of
interesting.
people
Those are
cheering for
different.
Maple Grove yesterday. We
Big-
were asking
yeah.
people, who you're rooting for, and a lot of Crimson fans
A lot of
out there.
Crimson
So-
fans out
Well,
there.
it's a program that's been on the come here for the last 5 years. They've got a ton of talent. They're deep, and I think they're going to be tough. I mean, the way they're playing right now. I remember watching Prior Lake on Hockey Day Minnesota, and at the time they had gone through a tough stretch. They were missing some kids, and they were like a 500 team. I'm like, well, wait a minute. This team is going to be a force. They end up being the 4th seed. They end up making a run through a very difficult section, and then they made that big splash on opening day on the AA side with a blowout win over one of the top teams in the state. They might, again, there's always a letdown factor. You put your absolute best out there day one. They maybe regressed back a little bit. Maple Grove is legit. I think it's going to be a battle tonight. I don't see either team being quote-unquote favored. It looks like a coin flip type of game. It's going to be a one-goal game the way I see it, and it's going to come down to probably the third period, probably the final few minutes of that third period. If I had to pick, I'd pick Maple Grove, but I absolutely can see Andover winning as well.
Especially right in the high of beating, Hill Murray.
I
right?
thought Hill Murray
Yeah.
was the favorite.
Yeah.
When I looked at the tournament, I looked at Bill Lechner, and last year they didn't get to play in the tournament, and that whole story. I thought that was going to be the toughest team to beat. They did that last night. It's going to be a heck of a game. Can't wait to watch it.
Either way, like you had mentioned, KG. I mean, the tourney can't beat it. It's so special. And I think we're so spoiled here in Minnesota because we don't really even realize, right? We kind of maybe take it for granted. We spoke with Egypt ice hockey yesterday, right? And it is just speaking with them like, oh, they don't have the luxury of this, but it's just so unique and so special. Not only just in general, the fun of it, but also the community base that Minnesota hockey. We'll have Derek Rickey of Minnesota Hockey coming up here a little bit later to share that with us. But just these kids are playing with their best friends and going for a championship. I mean, that is special in itself.
Yeah, when you grow up with a group of kids and you play all the youth hockey games together and you eventually get to play at the high school level, representing your town, your high school, there's something sacred about it. And I remember growing up in Burnsville, and all through the years, we had good teams, and we had this group of guys that played together. And, in 85, there we were as seniors. We had played together all of our lives since we were 6 and 7 years old.
I heard there's a great interview of you post-game from that tournament.
That's been, that evidence has been destroyed.
We'll find it.
It was black and white for one thing. So, there's no digital, there's no HD, thank God. I did have hair, and that's the one thing when the dummies out of Canterbury always.
I was going to say, I know some people at Canterbury who have that video.
Like, you had a lot of hair. I'm like, yeah, thanks for remembering. That's great news. It's like, hey, we all used to have. There's my guy right there. We all used to have hair.
Yeah, right.
It goes away. All right. Sorry. Hang on to it, kid. You got the good hair and the sunglasses now. When you're 55, you're going to look like this, and it's not that much fun. Well, that guy's like, yeah, I will.
He's like, yeah.
You know what's funny, Kevin, is talking about the state tournament, your memories of being here and the excitement of what that was. It's funny because when you talk to Minnesota-born hockey players who've made it to the pros, made it to the Olympics, whatever it may be, when you ask them about the highlights of their career, without a doubt, if they participated in the state tournament and had either a big moment, a big win, a championship win, they will tell you that was one of the highlights of their career, even though they're pros.
Yeah.
The best.
There you go. Burnsville MVP, Kevin Gorg. That's so true.
I'm so glad you teed me up on this one, Alexis, because I tell the story at banquets, and when I talk to teams throughout the years, I've been lucky enough to talk to Northfield because my best buddy, Mike Luckcraft, coaches those boys. I've gone back to Burnsville and talked to their teams. That's the story I bring up. So I was playing a charity golf event, 10, 15 years ago with Neil Broughton. And
no big deal.
So we're having a conversation about growing up in Minnesota, just like Alexis said, playing hockey. And I said, well, here's the deal. You played in multiple tournaments with your brothers at Roseau and never won it, but you played in the state tournament. You went on to win national championship, score the winning goal for the Golden Gophers with Herb Brooks behind the bench, beating North Dakota, your arch rival in the championship game. Then you went on to play in the most important sporting event in the history of the world, Miracle on Ice, winning a gold medal in 1980. Oh, and by the way, you had a 15-year career in the National Hockey League, and you won a Stanley Cup. So I said, honestly, we're on the golf course. I don't have a microphone in front of you. What's the most special memory for you? He's like, listen. He goes, the gold medal is the gold medal. It's unbelievable. He goes,
yeah.
I was a 16, 17-year-old kid playing in the state tournament, something I had dreamt about from the time I could formulate a thought. Yeah. And I got to do it with my brothers for Roseau. He said that will never be topped. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, this is it. This is the guy, right? That if you're going to have that measuring stick, he did it all. They didn't even win.
Right.
And that's still, to him,
one of
the most sacred memory. And so if you're lucky enough to be a kid that gets the chance to play in the tournament, whether it's on the girls or boys side, it is the event of a lifetime. And to me, that's why, as a hockey fan, you can't beat a section final. You're looking for the ultimate drama in Minnesota hockey.
Yeah.
It's that night, right? You go to let's just use the White Bear Lake Hill Murray game as an example.
Yeah.
The game sold
bring
out
back the Coliseum
the day
in
before,
that matchup.
right?
Yeah.
But these kids are going to the rink knowing that in the next 3 hours, they're either going to see their lifelong dreams come to fruition or their careers are going to be over. For a lot of them, the last time they play organized hockey. Think about that.
Yeah.
That is what that night holds. So as good as the tournament always is, and it always delivers, to me, there is nothing more emotional and more sacred than that section final night.
Yeah.
That's so true. And it's great competition.
Oh.
And it's always people that maybe you might not expect either. I mean,
It's kind of like Christmas Eve, too, with the whole,
like,
you know it's
chills.
coming up,
You know
right?
it's flying, but
Christmas Eve is exciting,
we get
too.
to open that gift, but this is where it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
great
so
call.
Good.
Great call.
It's so good. Well, and like you said, Kevin, it's, a lot of Minnesota guys, they want to play for their high school team. The NHL is kind of an afterthought, right? Like,
Yeah.
Pie in the sky.
and then after that, they're like, and then now I want to play for the Gophers, or now other Minnesota teams, right?
Or
But I mean,
St. Thomas.
or
Yeah.
St. Thomas. There you
Shameless
go.
plug from Alma Mater.
Go
Now
Tommies.
it's playing D1 hockey.
I mean, it is, and the thing about Minnesota are spoiled there too. How many college D1
6.
programs we have? I mean, it's absolutely
Great
phenomenal.
for the
So
kids.
it's Minnesota is a special place. I remember talking to Charlie Coyle about this once upon a time because Massachusetts hockey used to be like Minnesota, and they kind of went away from it. They have AAA. And their state tournament is just kind of wonky. I'm like, so explain to me kind of how this goes. He's like, I wish it was like Minnesota. You know, like we don't play for our high school in Massachusetts. They have these AAA teams, and it's so different, and it's just incredibly special here in Minnesota. So definitely appreciated. You know, you get to get out of school, even if you're not playing. You get out of school, go watch some hockey for a couple days. I still feel like a kid that's like skipping work. You know, we're playing hooky on work. We're gonna go and watch some hockey. I mean, it's
It's a tradition,
so
right? I remember
fun.
when I was a kid growing up, and I think starting from first grade on, I had to show up at school on time. I had to have okay grades, and then my parents made the deal. All right,
Just
if
okay
you don't
grades.
screw this up, well, they knew there's only so much
Set
I
the
could pull
bar as
off.
high as you can,
And
right?
A's were not really something that we talked about a lot when I was a kid, but just do okay. But the point was that Thursday of the state tournament back, this is in the late 70s, early 80s, my dad was coming to the grade school, scooping me up at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I got to spend the day with my dad at the state tournament. And I think there are a lot of families that do that with their sons or daughters, and you see the pictures all week long on social media. It is a celebration of the game. You don't have to have a team there. You don't have to have a relative there. To Jesse's point, you play hooky, you come down here, and you celebrate the game that is. Because for one weekend every year on the boys and girls side, everybody wants to be in St. Paul and be a part of this thing.
love it. I mean, I want to be in St. Paul all the time, but that's just
I
my
get
own
it.
bias.
I
It's
do get
so
it.
I am
great.
in St. Paul all the time.
It's true.
Of course
me too.
you are.
Most of the time.
Get at a time. She's everywhere.
She's everywhere.
She's all
you
over
know?
the place.
Hey, and
Hustling.
KG, before we wrap, I got to show you. My dad said he's with you. He sent a photo of his
Oh, look
bald
at
head.
that.
So if you can
Hey,
see
less
that,
is
it's a
more.
photo of my
Tell
dad's bald
Dad
head.
less is more. We're okay.
Yeah.
I own a lot of ball hats, though. I do.
You
I own
know?
a lot of ball hats.
Soda Stick's got some good ones over there. Bar
I
Down
saw
Beauties
that.
hats. Can't go wrong. Again, we are the Bar Down Beauties podcast. Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Ladies, sitting in between you talking hockey, who has it better than me right now?
You
This is
know,
a pretty good deal.
and I
Forget
should-
about the state tournament. This is what you dream about, right?
Exactly.
My time with the Bar Down Beauties, I was giving Myers a hard time on the flight home last night. He was getting pretty feisty. So someday, Dan, you'll get your chance.
We'll
but right
see.
now, it's all
We'll talk.
about us.
Yes. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Derek Rickey of Minnesota Hockey. Stay tuned.